Arrivals.
The train now standing at platform 5 will be the 10:25 to Exeter St David's, calling at Reading, Pewsey, Westbury and Taunton.
Excuse me? Mr. Ward?
Yes?
I'm Charles Archer from Continental Computers. How do you do?
How do you do? Thank you for coming to meet us.
Not at all. Did you have a good trip?
Yes, thank you. Oh, I'd like you to meet Philip Mason. He's our sales manager.
How do you do?
The train now standing at platform 3 is the 10:20 intercity service to Bristol.
Sarah! Hi. Hi! I haven't seen you for ages. How's things?
All right. And you?
Fine. How's work?
Okay. Do you fancy a coffee?
Oh, yes, I'd love one.
The train now arriving at platform 2 is the 9:12 from Oxford.
Hello, Dorothy.
Hello, Margaret. How are you?
Very well, thanks. And you?
Oh, I'm fine. How's the family?
Well, they're all fine. My car's just outside the station. Shall I take one of your bags?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
The next train leaving from platform 9 will be the 10:25 intercity service to Plymouth and Penzance. The train will be divided at Plymouth. Passengers for stations to Penzance should take the front 6 carriages.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Single to Exeter, please.
£14.70, please.
There you are. Thank you. What time's the next train?
10:25.
Thank you.
The train now arriving at platform 12 is the 7:10 from Swansea. Trains from Swansea are running approximately 15 minutes late due to maintenance work between Swansea and Cardiff.
Hello there.
I beg your pardon?
Hello. How are you getting on?
Fine, thank you. Sorry, do I know you?
Yes, it's me, Nick Fowler.
Sorry, I don't think I know you.
Aren't you Harry Shiner?
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I thought you were someone else.
Is everything ready?
This Is Your Life is one of the most popular programs on British and American television. Every week a famous person is invited to a television studio without knowing that he or she will be the subject of the program. The compere meets the person outside the studio and says, "This is your life." The person then meets friends and relatives from his or her past and present. Studio 4 is where the program is recorded. The program begins at 8 o'clock. It's 6:45 now, and the director is checking the preparations with his new production assistant. The subject of tonight's show will be an actor, Jason Douglas. The compere, as usual, will be Terry Donovan.
Let's just check the arrangements. We're bringing Jason Douglas here in a studio car. He thinks he's coming to a discussion program. The driver has been told to arrive at exactly 7:55. Now the program begins at 8 o'clock. At that time, Jason will be walking to the studio. Terry Donovan will start his introduction at 8:01, and Jason will arrive at 8:02. Terry will meet him at the studio entrance. Camera 4 will be there. Then he'll take him to that seat. It'll be on camera 3. Jason will be sitting there during the whole program. For most of the show, Terry will be standing in the middle, and he'll be on camera 2. The guests will come through that door, talk to Terry and Jason, and then sit over there. Now, is that all clear?
Yes, there's just one thing.
Well, what is it?
Who's going to look after the guests during the show?
Pauline is.
And where will they be waiting during the show?
In room 401, as usual. Pauline will be waiting with them, and she'll be watching the show on the monitor. She'll tell them 2 minutes before they enter.
I think that's everything.
This is your life.
Good evening and welcome to This Is Your Life. This is Terry Donovan speaking. We're waiting for the subject of tonight's program. He's one of the world's leading actors, and he thinks he's coming here to take part in a discussion program. I can hear him now. Yes, here he is. Jason Douglas, This Is Your Life.
Oh, no. I don't believe it. Not me.
Yes, you. Now, come over here and sit down. Jason, you were born at number 28 Balaclava Street in East Ham, London, on July the 2nd, 1947. You were one of 6 children, and your father was a taxi driver. Of course, your name was then Graham Smith. Now, do you know this voice?
I remember Jason when he was 2. He used to scream and shout all day.
Susan!
Yes, all the way from Sydney, Australia. She flew here specially for this program. It's your sister, Susan Fraser.
Susan! Why didn't you tell me? Oh, this is wonderful.
Yes, you haven't seen each other for 13 years. Take a seat next to him, Susan. You started school at the age of 5 in 1952, and in 1958 you moved to Lane End Secondary School. Do you remember this voice?
Smith, stop looking out of the window.
Oh, no! It's Mr. Hooper!
Your English teacher, Mr. Stanley Hooper. Was Jason a good student, Mr. Hooper?
Eh? No, he was the worst in the class. But he was a brilliant actor, even in those days. He could imitate all the teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Hooper. You can speak to Jason later. Well, you went to the London School of Drama in 1966 and left in 1969. In 1973, you went to Hollywood. Do you know this voice?
Hi, Jason. Can you ride a horse yet?
Maria Montrose, who's come from Hollywood to be with you tonight.
Hello, Jason. Oh, it's great to be here. Hello, Terry. Jason and I were in a movie together in 1974. Jason had to learn to ride a horse. Well, Jason doesn't like horses very much.
Like them? I'm terrified of them.
Anyway, he practiced for 2 weeks. Then he went to the director, it was Charles Orson, and said, "What do you want me to do?" Charles said, "I want you to fall off the horse." Jason was furious. He said, "What? Fall off? I've been practicing for 2 weeks. I could fall off the first day without any practice."
The Monte Carlo Rally. The Monte Carlo Rally, which started in 1911, is Europe's most famous motoring event. Competitors leave from several points around Europe and follow routes of approximately equal length to a rallying point, which will be Geneva this year. They then follow a single route to the finish. The rally consists of 5 daily stages, beginning on Sunday morning, and each competitor will have driven about 3,000 kilometres by Thursday night. It is not a race. The winner is decided on a points system. Drivers have to maintain an average speed between control points, and there are also special tests of driving skill in different conditions on the way.
This is Radio Wessex on 203 metres medium wave. It's 9 o'clock on Monday the 25th of January, and this is Barry King reporting from Dover. The British competitors in the Monte Carlo Rally have just arrived here at the end of the second stage in this year's competition. Russell Cook, who's driving a Sunbeam Lotus, is leading. The Triumph, driven by Tony Bond, who won last year's rally, crashed in Yorkshire this morning. Tony was unhurt, but will be unable to continue. 7 other cars have withdrawn due to bad weather conditions. Tonight, the cars, which left from Glasgow on Sunday morning, will be crossing the English Channel.
Out of work. In Britain, a lot of people are out of work. Tracy Chapman is 18 and she left school a year ago. She lives in the northeast, an area of high youth unemployment. She hasn't been able to find a job yet.
My dad just doesn't understand. He started working in a steel mill when he was 15. Things are different now, but he thinks I should start bringing home some money. Oh, I get my unemployment benefit, but that isn't much, and I'm fed up with queuing for it every Thursday. I hate having to ask me mum and dad for money. Oh, my mum gives me a couple of pounds for tights now and then, but she can't stand seeing me at home all day. I've almost given up looking for a job. I buy the local paper every day, but I'm really tired of looking through the situations vacant column. There are 50 applicants for every job. I was interested in being a dentist receptionist because I like meeting people, but now I take any job at all. People ask me why I don't move to London, but I don't want to leave my family and friends. Anyway, I'm scared of living on my own in a big city.
George Morley is 54. Until last year, he was a production manager in the textile industry. He had worked for the same company since he left school. He had a good job, a 4-bedroomed house and a company car. When his company had to close because of economic difficulties, he became redundant.
It's funny, really. I don't feel old, but it isn't easy to start looking for a job at my age. I've had so many refusals. Now I'm frightened of applying for a job. All the interviewers are 20 years younger than me. You see, I'm interested in learning a new skill, but nobody wants to train me. I can see their point of view. I'll have to retire in 10 years. It's just, well, I'm tired of sitting around the house. I've worked hard for nearly 40 years, and now I'm terrified of having nothing to do. When I was still with Lancastrian Textiles, I was bored with doing the same thing day after day, but now I'd really enjoy doing a job again. Any job, really. It's not the money. I got good redundancy pay, and the house is paid for, and I've given up smoking. No, it's not just money. I just need to feel, well, useful. That's all.
Battle of Trafalgar Street.
This is Pennine Radio News. Alan Nelson reporting from Trafalgar Street. Mr. Hardy, the Tadworth housing officer, has agreed to speak to us. Now, Mr. Hardy, has the situation changed since last night?
No, it hasn't. Mrs. Hamilton is still there and she's still refusing to talk to us.
Well, what are you going to do?
It's a very difficult situation. We'd like her to come out peacefully. The police don't intend to prosecute her, but she's a very stubborn lady.
Stubborn? Yes, well, it is her home.
I agree, and it's been her home for a long time, I know. But nobody else refused to move. You see, a lot of people in this area are living in substandard accommodation, and we are going to build over 300 flats on this site. Families are expecting to move into them next year. It's all being delayed because of one person.
But Mrs. Hamilton was born in that house.
Of course, of course. But we have promised to give her a modern flat immediately. A very nice flat, which is ideal for an elderly person living alone.
So, what happens next?
I don't know. I really don't. But we can't wait forever. The police will have to do something soon. It won't be easy. She's got 2 very big dogs, and they don't like strangers.
We have also managed to arrange an interview with Mrs. Hamilton. She has decided to speak to us, but she has demanded to see me alone. Mrs. Hamilton.
Who are you?
I'm Alan Nelson, Pennine Radio News.
Well, don't come any closer or I'll let the dogs out. Down, Caesar. Sit, boy.
I'm sure our listeners would like to hear your side of the story.
There's not much to say. I'm not moving. I was born here. I had my children here, and I intend to die here.
But the council really need to have this land, and they have arranged to provide a new flat for you.
Oh, yes, I know. But I can't take me dogs with me. And I need to have company. My dogs are all I've got. Down, boy.
How long can you stay here?
Oh, I've got plenty of food. The council have threatened to cut off the water and electricity, but I'll be all right.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Hamilton. And good luck.
And you can tell the council from me, I want another house where I can keep me dogs, not a little flat in a bloody high-rise block.
Marriage Guidance Council. Malcolm and Barbara Harris have been married for nearly 15 years. They've got 2 children, Gary, aged 13, and Andrea, who's 11. During the last couple of years, Malcolm and Barbara haven't been very happy. They argue all the time. Barbara's sister advised them to go to the Marriage Guidance Council. There is one in most British towns. It's an organisation which allows people to talk with a third person about their problems. This is their 3rd visit, and Mrs. Murray, the counsellor, always sees them.
Ah, come in, Barbara. Take a seat. Is your husband here?
Yes, he's waiting outside. He didn't want to come here this week, but, well, I persuaded him to come.
I see. How have things been?
Oh, much the same. We still seem to have rows all the time.
What do you quarrel about?
What don't we quarrel about, you mean? Oh, everything. You see, he's so inconsiderate.
Go on.
Well, I'll give you an example. You know, when the children started school, I wanted to go back to work again too. So I got a job. Well, anyway, by the time I've collected Gary and Andrea from school, I only get home about half an hour before Malcolm.
Yes?
Well, when he gets home, he expects me to run around and get his tea. He never does anything in the house. And last Friday, he invited 3 of his friends to come round for a drink. He didn't tell me to expect them, and I'd had a long and difficult day. I don't think that's right, do you?
Barbara, I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm here to listen.
Sorry. And he's so untidy. He's worse than the kids. I always have to remind him to pick up his clothes. He just throws them on the floor. After all, I'm not his servant. I've got my own career. Actually, I think that's part of the trouble. You see, I earn as much money as he does.
Malcolm, I'm so glad you could come.
Hello, Mrs. Murray. Well, I'll be honest, Barbara had to force me to come, really.
Does it embarrass you to talk about your problems?
Yes, it does. But I suppose we need to talk to somebody.
Barbara feels that you resent her job.
I don't know. I would prefer her to stay at home, but she's very well qualified, and I encouraged her to go back to work. Now the kids are at school, she needs an interest, and I suppose we need the money.
How do you share the housework?
I try to help. I always help her to wash up, and I help Gary and Andrea to do their homework while she does the dinner. But she doesn't think that's enough. What do you think?
I'm not here to give an opinion, Malcolm.
I think we're both too tired, that's all. In the evenings, we're both too tired to talk. And Barbara, she never allows me to suggest anything about the house or about the kids. We always have the same arguments. She's got her own opinions, and that's it. Last night we had another row. She's forbidden the kids to ride their bikes to school.
Why?
She thinks they're too young to ride in the traffic, but I think they should. She always complains about collecting them from school. But you can't wrap children in cotton wool, can you?
A funny thing happened to me. A funny thing happened to me last Friday. I'd gone to London to do some shopping. I wanted to get some Christmas presents, and I needed to find some books for my course at college. You see, I'm a student. I caught an early train to London, so by early afternoon I'd bought everything that I wanted. Anyway, I'm not very fond of London, all the noise and traffic, and I'd made some arrangements for that evening. So I took a taxi to Waterloo Station. I can't really afford taxis, but I wanted to get the 3:30 train. Unfortunately, the taxi got stuck in a traffic jam, and by the time I got to Waterloo, the train had just gone. I had to wait an hour for the next one. I bought an evening newspaper, The Standard, and wandered over to the station buffet. At that time of day, it's nearly empty, so I bought a coffee and a packet of biscuits, chocolate biscuits. I'm very fond of chocolate biscuits. There were plenty of empty tables, and I found one near the window. I sat down and began doing the crossword. I always enjoy doing crossword puzzles. After a couple of minutes, a man sat down opposite me. There was nothing special about him, except that he was very tall. In fact, he looked like a typical city businessman. You know, dark suit and briefcase. I didn't say anything, and I carried on with my crossword. Suddenly, he reached across the table, opened my packet of biscuits, took one, dipped it into his coffee, and popped it into his mouth. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was too shocked to say anything. Anyway, I didn't want to make a fuss, so I decided to ignore it. I always avoid trouble if I can. I just took a biscuit myself and went back to my crossword. When the man took a second biscuit, I didn't look up and I didn't make a sound. I pretended to be very interested in the puzzle. After a couple of minutes, I casually put out my hand, took the last biscuit, and glanced at the man. He was staring at me furiously. I nervously put the biscuit in my mouth and decided to leave. I was ready to get up and go when the man suddenly pushed back his chair, stood up, and hurried out of the buffet. I felt very relieved and decided to wait 2 or 3 minutes before going myself. I finished my coffee, folded my newspaper, and stood up. And there, on the table where my newspaper had been, was my packet of biscuits.
Polite requests. Max Millwall used to be a popular comedian on British radio. He's nearly 70 now, but he still performs in clubs in the Midlands and north of England. He's on stage now at the All-Star Variety Club in Wigan.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and others. It's nice to be back in Wigan again. Well, I have to say that. I say it every night. I said it last night. The only trouble was that I was in Birmingham. I thought the audience looked confused. Actually, I remember Wigan very well indeed, really. You know, the first time I came here was in the 1930s. I was very young and very shy. Thank you, Mother. No, you can't believe that, can you? Well, it's true. I was very young and very shy. Anyway, the first Saturday night I was in Wigan, I decided to go to the local dance hall. You remember the old Majestic Ballroom in Wythenshawe Street? There's a multi-storey car park there now. It was a lovely place, always full of beautiful girls. The ballroom, not the car park. Of course, most of them are grandmothers now. Oh, you were there too, were you, love? I was much too shy to ask anyone for a dance, so I sat down at a table and I thought I'd watch for a while. You know, see how the other lads did it. At the next table, there was a lovely girl in a blue dress. She'd arrived with a friend, but her friend was dancing with someone. This bloke came over to her. He was very posh, wearing a dinner jacket and a bow tie. Well, he walked up to her and said, "Excuse me, may I have the pleasure of the next dance?" She looked up at him. She had lovely big blue eyes and said, "Eh? What did you say?" So he said, "I wonder if you would be kind enough to dance with me. If you don't mind." No, thank you very much," she replied. A few minutes later, this other chap arrived. He had a blue suit, a nice tie, a little moustache. He gave her this big smile and said, "Would you be so kind as to have the next dance with me?" "Pardon?" she said. I thought to myself, she's a bit deaf, or maybe she hasn't washed her ears recently. "Would you mind having the next dance with me?" he said, a bit nervously this time. No thanks, love. I'm finishing my lemonade," she replied. Blimey, I thought, this looks a bit difficult. Then this third fella came over. He was very good looking, you know, black teeth, white hair. Sorry, I mean, white teeth, black hair. "May I ask you something?" he said, ever so politely. "If you like," she answered. Could I... No, might I have the next dance with you?" "Oh, sorry," she said. "My feet are aching. I've been standing up all day at the shop." By now I was terrified. I mean, she said no to all of them. Then this fourth character thought he'd try. "Would you like to dance?" he said. "What?" she replied. She was a lovely girl, but I didn't think much of her voice. "Do you want to dance?" he said. She looked straight at him. "No," she said. "That's all." "No." Well, I decided to go home. I was wearing an old jacket and trousers, and nobody would say that I was good looking. Just as I was walking past her table, she smiled. "Dance?" I said. "Thank you very much," she replied. And that was that. It's our 40th wedding anniversary next week.
Polite requests.
Mike,
Yes?
shut the door, will you? It's freezing in here.
Right. Sorry.
Karen,
Yes?
lend me 20p. I left my purse in the office.
Oh, OK. Here you are.
Thanks.
Excuse me, could you pass me the sugar?
Oh, yes, of course. There you are.
Thank you very much.
Can I help you?
Oh, thank you. Would you mind putting my case on the rack?
Not at all. Oh, there you are.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very kind.
Excuse me, it's a bit stuffy in here. Do you mind if I open the window?
No, no, I don't mind at all. I feel like some fresh air too.
Excuse me, Mrs. Howe. May I ask you something?
Yes, Wendy. What is it?
May I have the day off next Friday?
Well, we're very busy. Is it important?
Yes, it is really. It's my cousin's wedding.
Oh, well, of course you can.
Can I help you, sir?
I beg your pardon?
Can I help you, sir?
Oh, no. No, thank you. I'm just looking.
Good morning.
Good morning. I wonder if you can help me. I'm trying to find a Christmas present for my father.
Might I suggest a tie?
Perhaps. Could you show me some ties?
Excuse me.
Yes?
I wonder if you'd be kind enough to get me one of those tins on the top shelf. I can't reach it.
Certainly. There you are.
Thank you very much indeed. A trip to Spain. Norman Garrard is a trainee sales representative. He's 22 and he works for a company that sells toys. He's going to Spain on business. It's his first business trip abroad and he's packing his suitcase. He lives with his parents and his mother is helping him and fussing.
Norman, haven't you finished packing yet?
No, Mum, but it's all right. There isn't much to do.
Well, I'll give you a hand. Oh, there isn't much room left. Is there anywhere to put your toilet bag?
Yes, it'll go in here. Now, I've got 3 more shirts to pack. They'll go on top. But there's another pair of shoes to get in. I don't know where to put them.
Put them down the side. Right, I think we can close it now.
Right, where's the label?
Which label, dear?
The airline label to put on the suitcase. Ah, here it is.
Now, have you got the key?
Which key?
The key to lock the case, of course.
It's in the lock, Mum. Don't fuss. There's nothing to worry about. There's plenty of time.
Have you forgotten anything?
I hope not.
And you've got a safe pocket to keep your passport in.
Yes, it's in my inside jacket pocket.
Have you got a book to read on the plane?
Yes, it's in my briefcase.
And has everything been arranged?
What do you mean?
Well, is there someone to meet you at the other end?
Oh, yes. The Spanish representative's meeting me at the airport.
And you've got somewhere to stay tonight?
I hope so. Now, everything's ready. I'll just have to get some pesetas at the airport. I'll need some small change to tip the porter, but that's all.
Well, have a good trip, dear, and look after yourself.
Thanks, Mum.
Oh, I nearly forgot. Here are some sweets to suck on the plane. You know, when it's coming down.
Oh, Mum! Don't worry. I'll be all right, really. I'll see you next week.
Flying to Spain.
This is the last call for the 12 o'clock British Airways flight BA412 to Amsterdam. Would passengers for this flight please proceed without delay to gate 17? Scandinavian Airlines announced the departure of the 12:05 flight SK526 to Stockholm. This flight is now boarding at Gate 8. Would passengers for the 12:10 Iberia flight IB 341 to Madrid please go at once to Gate 16, where this flight is now boarding. Alitalia regret to announce that their 12:15 flight AZ281 to Rome will be delayed for approximately 30 minutes. Olympic Airways announced the departure of the 12:30 flight OA260 to Athens. Would passengers on this flight please proceed to Gate 19? This is a call for Mr. Gaston Meyer. Would Mr. Gaston Meyer, travelling on the 12:45 Sabina flight SN 604 to Brussels, report to the airport information desk, please?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Captain Perez and his crew welcome you aboard Iberia flight IB 341 to Madrid. I am sorry to announce a slight delay. We are still waiting for clearance from air traffic control. The delay won't be too long, and we hope to arrive in Madrid on time.
This is your captain speaking. We are now passing over the English coast. Our Boeing 727 is cruising at a height of 30,000 feet, and our speed is approximately 560 miles per hour. The temperature in Madrid is 18 degrees Celsius, and it is a clear and sunny day. We expect to pass through some slight turbulence, and would recommend passengers to remain in their seats and keep their belts fastened.
We are now beginning our descent to Madrid. Would passengers please make sure that their seatbelts are fastened and extinguish all smoking materials. We would like to remind passengers that smoking is not permitted until you are in the airport building. We hope you had a pleasant and enjoyable flight. We would like to thank you for traveling on Iberia, and we hope to see you again soon. Would passengers please remain seated until the plane has come to a complete stop and the doors have been opened.
Here's your tray, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Would you like something to drink?
Yes, please. Some red wine.
That's 100 pesetas.
Thanks. Can I pay in British money?
Of course. You needn't pay now, I'll collect it later. Spanish national or non-Spanish, sir?
I'm British.
Would you mind completing this landing card, sir?
Right, thank you.
Passport, please. Thank you. Where have you come from, sir?
London.
And what's the purpose of your visit? Business or pleasure?
Business.
Fine. And how long will you be staying here?
Just for 5 days.
Thank you, Mr. Garad. I hope you enjoy your visit.
Money, money, money.
Excuse me,
Yes, miss.
how much do you want for this plate?
Let me see. Oh, yes. That's a lovely example of Victorian brass. It's worth 20 quid.
£20? Well, that's too much for me. It's a pity, it's really nice.
Ah, I said it's worth 20 quid. I'm only asking 15 for it.
£15?
Yes, it's a real bargain.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But I can't afford that.
Well, look, just for you, I'll make it 14 quid. I can't go any lower than that.
I'll give you 10.
10? Come on, love. You must be joking. I paid more than that for it myself.
14. It's worth every penny.
Well, perhaps I could give you 11.
13, that's my final offer.
12.
12.50?
All right, 12.50.
There you are, love. You've got a real bargain there.
Yes, thank you very much.
Inside Story.
This is IBC News. Julian Snow, the missing Daily News reporter, was interviewed this morning by Dominic Beale of IBC News in Mandanga.
Julian, can you tell us how you were captured in the first place?
Well, I was on my way to visit a village near the front line. I came round a bend in the road, and there was a tree lying across the road. I only just managed to stop in time. Suddenly, armed men appeared on all sides.
What did you do?
What would you do? I just sat there with my hands in the air. Anyway, they made me get out of the Land Rover and made me lie on the ground. I thought, this is it, they're going to shoot me. I started saying my prayers.
What happened next?
Well, they searched me. Of course, I didn't have any weapons, just a camera. It's funny, they let me keep it. Then they tied my hands together and blindfolded me. Then they made me get in the back of a truck and lie under some sacks. I've no idea where they took me, except that it was quite a large training camp. I was there for 10 days.
Were you treated well?
Yes, I suppose I was. They let me walk about the camp, and they let me take photographs, but they wouldn't let me photograph any faces. I was able to interview some of the leaders.
How did you escape?
I didn't. They put me back in the truck, blindfolded me again, drove for a few hours, then made me get out, pointed me in the direction of town, and let me go.
And what exactly did the guerrilla leaders say about the situation?
Well, if you want to know that, you'll have to buy tomorrow's Daily News.
Preferences.
What are you doing tomorrow night?
Nothing. Why?
Well, do you like jazz?
Yes, I do, very much.
Which do you like best? Modern or traditional?
I like both, really.
There's a weather report concert at the Hammersmith Odeon. Would you like to come?
Oh, yes, they're my favourite group.
Lisa, look over here. They've got a very good selection of Levi cords.
Oh, yes, and they got my size, too.
But only in navy blue and black. Which do you prefer?
I don't like either of them very much. I really wanted green.
They haven't got green in your size. Go on, try a pair on.
No, I prefer to look somewhere else.
Have you decided yet? What do you want to see?
A Moment of Peace is on at the Continental. I'd like to see that.
Would you really? Oh, I'd rather see War in Space.
Oh, no. The reviews were terrible.
I know, but it sounds fun. A Moment of Peace is in French, and I'd rather not have to read subtitles.
Then how about California Sunset?
I'd rather not. I can't stand Steve Newman.
Well, you choose.
I don't fancy any of them. I'd much rather stay in and watch TV.
What do you fancy?
I don't know. There isn't much choice, is there?
No, there isn't really. What would you rather have? Steak and kidney or place?
Can't make up my mind. I'd rather have a hamburger.
We can ask for the full menu if you like.
No, it's not worth it. I'll have the place.
Where have all the fans gone?
Good evening and welcome to the Michael Parkhurst Talkabout. In tonight's Talkabout, we're looking at the problem of soccer's missing millions. Since 1950, attendance at football matches has fallen by nearly 50%. Many clubs are in financial trouble, and tonight we hope to identify the major causes and discuss some possible solutions. First of all, we'll hear from one of soccer's lost millions, Mr. Bert Woods from London, who used to be a regular Chelsea supporter.
I stopped going 5 or 6 years ago. I'd rather stay at home, watch it on telly. You get a better view. And I like the action replays. I'm too afraid to go now, really. All this violence, you know. When I was a lad, there was the occasional fight on the terraces, but nothing like you see these days. Whole gangs of teenagers who aren't interested in football. Somebody ought to do something about it. These kids aren't real fans. They just come looking for trouble. The police ought to sort out the real fans from the troublemakers. You know, I always used to go with my dad, but I wouldn't take my kids. There's too much foul language. And I don't only blame the kids. There ought to be more discipline at home and in schools.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Let's go over to Brian Huff, the manager of Eastfield United, one of our most successful clubs. Brian?
I sympathise with Mr. Woods, and there are plenty of people like him. Anyway, we better do something about it or we'll all go broke. The clubs and players must share the blame. Football's big business and it's very competitive. Winning has become the most important thing. There's too much violence on the field. Referees have to get tougher with players. They should send off players for deliberate fouls. The other problem is television. There's too much football on TV and they only show the most exciting parts. Goals, fouls and violence. People are bored when they see the real game. Anyway, the clubs started talking about these problems 10 years ago and nothing's been done. We better not spend another 10 years talking. We better do something and do it soon.
Our next guest is a young fan, Kevin Dolan, a Manchester United supporter who is 16 years old. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I'm not one of soccer's missing millions. I never miss a match. I've travelled all over the country with United, and I've never been in trouble. I blame the media for most of this violence. They only show young people when they're doing something wrong. They ought not to give so much publicity to troublemakers. It only encourages the others, doesn't it? The violence always starts when there's a TV camera near. If they ban alcohol from football grounds, there'd be much less trouble.
Thank you, Kevin. Our last speaker is Jimmy McTavish, the ex-Scotland striker, who has just returned from the United States after spending 2 years with Miami Galaxy. Well, Jimmy, what ought we to do?
I agree with a lot of what's been said, Michael, but hadn't we better look at some solutions? I've been playing in the States for the last 2 seasons, and I haven't seen any violence over there. A football match is a day out for the family. More than half the supporters are women and children, and there are much better facilities. Everybody gets a comfortable seat. There are good restaurants and there's entertainment before and after the game and at half-time. Football stadiums are old, cold and dirty over here. We'd better take a good look at American soccer. I think we've got a lot to learn. Entertainment is what football is all about and we'd better not forget it.
Night Flight.
This is Captain Cook speaking. Our estimated time of arrival in Brisbane will be 1 a.m., so we've got a long flight ahead of us. I hope you enjoy it. Our hostesses will be serving dinner shortly. Thank you.
It was Christmas Eve, 1959, and the beginning of another routine flight. The hostesses started preparing the food trays. A few of the passengers were trying to get some sleep, but most of them were reading. There was nothing to see from the windows, except the vast blackness of the Australian desert below. There was nothing unusual about the flight, except perhaps that the plane was nearly full. A lot of the passengers were travelling home to spend Christmas with their families. The hostesses started serving dinner. It was a smooth and quiet flight. The hostesses had finished collecting the trays, and they were in the galley putting things away, when the first buzzers sounded. One of the hostesses went along the aisle to check. When she came back, she looked surprised. "It's amazing," she said. "Even on a smooth flight like this, 2 people have been sick." 20 minutes later, nearly half the passengers were ill, dramatically ill. Several were moaning and groaning, some were doubled up in pain, and 2 were unconscious. Fortunately, there was a doctor on board, and he was helping the hostesses. He came to the galley and said, "I'd better speak to the captain. This is a severe case of food poisoning. I think we'd better land as soon as possible." "What caused it?" asked one of the hostesses. "Well," replied the doctor, "I had the beef for dinner, and I'm fine. The passengers who chose the fish are ill." The hostess led him to the flight deck. She tried to open the door. "I think it's jammed," she said. The doctor helped her to push it open. The captain was lying behind the door. He was unconscious. The co-pilot was slumped across the controls, and the radio operator was trying to revive him. The doctor quickly examined the two pilots. "They just collapsed," said the radio operator. "I don't feel too good myself." "Can you land the plane?" said the doctor. "Me? No, I'm not a pilot. We've got to revive them," he replied. "The plane's on automatic pilot. We're okay for a couple of hours." "I don't know," said the doctor. "They could be out for a long time." "I'd better contact ground control," said the radio operator. The doctor turned to the hostess. "Perhaps you should make an announcement. Try to find out if there's a pilot on board." "We can't do that," she said. "It'll cause a general panic." "Well, how the hell are we going to get this thing down?" said the doctor. Suddenly, the hostess remembered something. "One of the passengers. I overheard him saying that he'd been a pilot in the war. I'll get him." She found the man and asked him to come to the galley. "Didn't you say you used to be a pilot?" she asked. "Yes, why? The pilot's all right, isn't he?" She led him to the flight deck. They explained the situation to him. "You mean you want me to fly the plane?" he said. "You must be joking. I was a pilot, but I flew single-engine fighter planes, and that was 15 years ago. This thing's got 4 engines. Isn't there anybody else?" he asked. "I'm afraid not," said the hostess. The man sat down at the controls. His hands were shaking slightly. The radio operator connected him to air traffic control. They told him to keep flying on automatic pilot towards Brisbane and to wait for further instructions from an experienced pilot. An hour later, the lights of Brisbane appeared on the horizon. He could see the lights of the runway shining brightly beyond the city. Air traffic control told him to keep circling until the fuel gauge registered almost empty. This gave him a chance to get used to handling the controls. In the cabin, the hostesses and the doctor were busy attending to the sick. Several people were unconscious. The plane circled for over half an hour. The passengers had begun to realize that something was wrong. "What's going on? Why don't we land?" shouted a middle-aged man. "My wife's ill. We've got to get her to hospital." A woman began sobbing quietly. At last the plane started its descent. Suddenly there was a bump which shook the plane. "We're all going to die!" screamed a man. Even the hostesses looked worried as panic began to spread through the plane. "It's all right," someone said. "The pilot's just lowered the wheels, that's all." As the plane approached the runway, they could see fire trucks and ambulances speeding along beside the runway with their lights flashing. There was a tremendous thump as the wheels hit the tarmac, bounced twice, raced along the runway and screeched to a halt. The first airport truck was there in seconds. "That was nearly a perfect landing. Well done," shouted the control tower. "Thanks," said the man. "Any chance of a job?" The Junk Shop. Justin Wedgwood and Lenny Smith are antique dealers. They've got a very successful business. They travel around the country buying antique furniture and paintings from junk shops and from elderly people, and then they sell them from their shop in Kensington, a fashionable part of London. Today they're in a small Welsh town. Justin's just come out of a little junk shop, and he seems very excited.
Lenny, we're in luck. There's a painting in there, a landscape. It's a good one. I thought it might be valuable, so I had a good look at the signature. It isn't very clear. I think it may be a constable.
A constable?
It can't be. They're all in art galleries. They're worth a fortune.
Well, someone found one 2 years ago. This might be another. It's dirty and it isn't in very good condition.
How much do you think it's worth?
I don't know. It may be worth 100,000. It might even be worth more.
Be careful, Justin. We better use the old trick.
Right. There's a chair in the window. It must be worth about £5. I'll offer the old lady 50 quid for it. She'll be so pleased that she won't think about the painting.
Don't say you want the painting. Say you want the frame, OK?
Fine. You'd better wait in the van. I'd rather do this on my own.
Justin, check the signature before you give her 50 quid for the chair.
Don't worry, Lenny. I know what I'm doing.
I'll be with you in a minute.
Now, hello. I'm interested in that chair in the window.
What? That doll thing? It's been there for years.
Has it? It's very nice. I think it could be Victorian.
Really?
Yes, I think I'm right. I've seen 1 or 2 other chairs like it. I think I could get a good price for that in London. I'll offer you, £50.
50? You must be mad, man.
No, it's a fair price.
Well then, it's yours.
There you are, then. £50. Goodbye. Oh, by the way, that painting's in a nice frame.
It's a nice picture, dear. Early 19th century, I've heard.
Oh, no, it can't be. I've seen lots like it. It must be 20th century. There's no market for them. Still, I could use the frame.
All right. How much will you give me for it?
How about £20?
Oh, no, dear. It must be worth more than that. It came from the big house on the hill.
Did it? Let me have another look at it. Yes, the frame is really nice. I'll give you 100.
Oh, dear. I don't know what to do. You see, I like that painting myself.
All right. 120. That's my final offer.
Shall we say 150?
Okay, it's a deal.
Shall I wrap it for you?
No, I've got the van outside. It was nice doing business with you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, dear. Thank you. Owen!
Yes, my love?
I've sold another of your imitation constables. You'd better bring another one downstairs. If the paint's dry. The gentleman who bought it seemed very pleased with it.
Noisy neighbours.
Sydney, wake up.
Eh? What? What's the matter? Can't be 8 o'clock already.
No, it's 1:30. It's those people next door again. Listen.
Oh, yes. They must be having another party.
Listen to that. They must be waking up the whole street. And they've got 3 young children. They can't be sleeping through that noise. It's disgusting. Somebody should call the police. Sydney, wake up.
Yeah, I wasn't asleep, dear. They're all laughing. They must be having a good time. They never invite us, do they?
Sydney.
Yes, dear. What is it now?
Listen. They must be leaving.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Maybe we'll get some sleep.
I hope so. It's nearly 3 o'clock. Good night, dear.
Oh, hell, they're having a row now.
I'm not surprised. They always have rows after parties.
Oh, they must be throwing the pots and pans again.
No, I think that was a plate, dear. Or maybe the television. They'll be sorry in the morning. Sydney, wake up.
Oh, what's that?
You can't be hammering at this time of night.
What time is it?
4 o'clock. What can they be doing at 4 o'clock in the morning?
I can't hear any voices. Go back to sleep, Sybil.
Sydney, listen. There's someone in the garden next door.
It must be the milkman.
No, it can't be. It's too early. It's only 4:45. Who could it be? You'd better have a look.
All right. Oh, it's Mr. Sykes. And he's carrying a spade.
Oh, no. You don't think he's killed her, do you?
Well, we haven't heard her voice for a while. You know she's probably sleeping.
But what can he be doing at this time of night?
If he has killed her, he might be burying the body.
What? You don't think so, do you?
Well, he can't be planting potatoes, can he? I suppose you'll want me to phone the police.
No. Ask him what he's doing first.
Hello there, Mr. Sykes. You're up early this morning?
I haven't been to bed yet. We had a party last night. Hope we didn't keep you awake.
Oh, no, we didn't hear anything. Nothing at all.
Well, it was a pretty noisy party. My wife knocked over the goldfish tank while we were clearing up. The poor fish died. I'm just burying them before the children wake up.
You're in the army now.
It's Saturday afternoon at Botherington Army Camp. The new recruits are supposed to be working, but they aren't. The colonel's away today, and they're lazing around in the barracks. The sergeant major has just opened the door. He's brought the duty roster with him, so he knows exactly what each of them should be doing.
Hello, what's going on here? Smith? What are you doing?
I'm listening to the radio, sir.
And what are you supposed to be doing, Smith?
I'm not sure, sir.
Well, let me tell you, Smith. You are supposed to be mowing the lawn.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again, sir.
It had better not, Smith. And when I come back, Smith, you better be mowing that grass. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
This isn't a holiday camp. You're in the army, you know.
Migration.
One of the greatest mysteries of nature is the instinct to migrate. Every year, millions of creatures feel the need to move for one reason or another. Most of us have seen the arrival or departure of migrating flocks of birds. Migration, however, is not confined to birds, but can be seen in reptiles, for example, turtles, frogs, insects, butterflies, locusts, fish, eels, salmon, tunny, and mammals, reindeer, seals, lemmings, whales, bats. Many of these creatures succeed in navigating over long distances. How exactly they manage to do this still remains a mystery. There are several possibilities. They may navigate by using one or more of the following: the sun, the stars, the Earth's magnetic field. When a small bar magnet is attached to a pigeon, it is unable to navigate. A sense of smell. Geographical features. Birds flying from North Africa to France seem to follow coastlines and valleys. Changes in temperature. Salmon can detect a change in water temperature as small as 0.03 degrees centigrade. Sound. Whales and bats seem to use sonar. Experiments suggest that these navigational abilities are partly instinctive. In one famous experiment, a young seabird from the island of Stockholm off the Welsh coast was taken across the Atlantic by plane to Boston, 5,100 kilometers away. It was released and was back in its nest 12.5 days later. This seabird holds the record for long-distance migration. Arctic tern breed in northern Canada, Greenland, northern Europe, Siberia and Alaska. In late August, they set off on a 17,500-kilometre journey, which takes them south, past the west coasts of Europe and Africa, to the tip of southern Africa, 14,000 kilometres in 90 days. They then fly round to the Indian Ocean and down to Antarctica, where they spend the Antarctic summer. On the way back, they sometimes make a complete circuit of Antarctica before returning to their breeding grounds.
The round trip is over 35,000 kilometres in 8 months, 240 kilometres a day when they're flying. The Arctic tern sees more hours of daylight than any other creature, because it experiences 2 summers a year, one in the Arctic region and one in the Antarctic. These regions have almost constant daylight in summer. One tern, which was ringed in Norway as a chick, died in exactly the same place 27 years later. Presumably, it had made the journey 27 times. European freshwater eels, which look like snakes but are really fish, begin and end their lives in the Sargasso Sea, southeast of Bermuda. As eggs and larvae, they drift for 3 years towards Europe, changing both shape and colour as they reach the freshwater estuaries of European rivers. They spend the next 9 to 19 years in rivers, streams, lakes and ponds. As they approach old age, they seem to have an unexplained compulsion to return to the Sargasso Sea to breed. Many eels which have found their way into ponds and lakes come out of the water and travel overland, gliding through damp grass. When they reach the sea, they make their way to the Sargasso, where they breed and die. No eels make the journey twice. The eel has an acute sense of smell, which is used for navigation in local waters, but inherited memory seems the only explanation for their migration to the Sargasso. The brown lemming is a small mammal, 10 to 18 centimetres long, found all over northern Canada, Scandinavia, and northern Russia. Lemmings usually make short annual migrations in spring, travelling by night and feeding and sleeping by day. Every 3 or 4 years, however, they make much longer migrations in large numbers. The lemming population seems to change over a 3 or 4 year cycle, from 1 lemming per 4 hectares to between 400 and 700 lemmings per 4 hectares. Migration seems to be a method of population control, and is most spectacular in the well-known mass suicides, where thousands of lemmings plunge over cliff tops into the sea and swim till they die of exhaustion. These mass suicides only occur infrequently, and then only in Norway, where mountains touch the sea. Nobody knows what makes them do it, but there are 2 theories. One is that migrating lemmings cross rivers and lakes and can't tell the difference between a river and the sea. The other, more interesting theory is that they are migrating towards ancient breeding grounds, which existed beneath the North Sea millions of years ago, when the sea level was lower.
Murder at Gurney Manor. Lord Gurney was found dead on the library floor of his country house in Norfolk. He had been shot 5 times. The police have been called. There are 6 people in the house, and they all heard the shots at about 9 o'clock. The police have taken statements and made the following notes about each of the 6 people.
I was in my room. My bedroom's on the ground floor because I can't walk. I was reading. I heard the shots. There were 4 or 5. I wheeled myself into the hall. The door of the library was open. Miss Mart was standing in the doorway, screaming. Gillespie was standing at the French windows. The gun was on the floor by the body.
I was in the drawing-room, writing some letters, job applications, actually. I heard the shots, ran across the hall. The library door was open. Poor dear Horace was lying in a pool of blood. I started screaming. Gillespie came in through the French windows. They were opened. Then Lady Agatha arrived. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me.
I was in the billiard room. I was practicing. Suddenly there were 5 shots. I thought it was Chivers shooting birds in the garden again. Then I heard a scream. It sounded like Celia, so I opened the connecting door to the library and saw Father lying there, Gillespie at the window, and Celia and Mother together in the main doorway. I couldn't believe my eyes.
I was by the lake, fishing in my usual place. When I heard the shots, I hurried through the trees towards the house. I saw Gillespie running across the lawn towards the library. When I got there, everybody was in the room except Tom Giles, the gardener. Poor old Gurney was dead. I was absolutely sure he was dead. After all, I was in the army for 20 years.
I was taking my evening walk. I had just come out of the kitchen door. I was walking round the corner of the house when I heard shooting. I ran across the lawn to the French windows. I saw Lord Gurney's body and Miss Smart in the doorway.
I was working in the kitchen garden. I heard shots, but that's not unusual around here. Lord Gurney and the Major are very fond of shooting. And I heard lots of screaming and shouting, so I went into the house through the kitchen door to see what was happening. They were all there. I wasn't sorry. He deserved it. Everybody hated him.
Murder at Gurney Manor, Part 2. Inspector Marples is in charge of the case. Sergeant Watts is his assistant. They're in the library.
Where is everybody, Sergeant?
They're all in the drawing room, sir. Constable Dixon's with them. What do you think, sir?
It could have been any one of them, couldn't it? We don't know what skeletons are in the cupboard. May have been two of them together. Might even have been all of them. Nobody seems very sad.
No, sir. Lord Gurney was a very unpopular man in the village. Nobody liked him. It could have been an outsider.
No, Watts. It must have been one of them. Let's look at the evidence.
It seems to me that everybody has got a motive, sir, and nobody's got an alibi. They all say they were alone when it happened.
Yes, and there are no fingerprints on the gun.
It couldn't have been her, sir.
Why not, Watts?
Well, she's in a wheelchair. She can't move very fast. Anyway, they've been married for 35 years. Can't have been her.
Most murders are inside the family, Watts, and there is a door between her room and the library.
Oh, yes, sir. But it was locked.
Doors have keys, Watts.
But why would she want to kill him?
Miss Smart's a very attractive young woman. We don't know what was going on. She could have been jealous.
But, sir, he was over 60. He was old enough to be her father.
Ah, well, Watts, he was a good-looking man and very rich. What about the Major, Watts? He's a strange fellow.
I've been thinking about that. It can't have been him, sir.
Really? Why not?
Why would he need to fire 5 times? He was an army pistol champion. He could have killed him with one shot.
Maybe he did, Watts. Maybe he did.
I don't understand, sir.
There are a lot of things you don't understand, Watts. Perhaps he's more clever than he looks.
But there's no motive, sir.
There may have been. I mean, there was that scandal with the property company.
But he was at the lake, sir.
He might not have been, Watts. He's a pistol champion. He could have shot him from the trees and thrown the gun into the room.
Oh. Do you really think so, sir?
I don't know, Watts. It's just a theory.
Making a complaint.
Good morning, miss. I'd like to speak to the manager.
I am the manager, sir. How can I help you?
Oh, really? It's this radio. It doesn't work.
Did you buy it here?
Pardon? Of course I bought it here. Look, you switch it on, and nothing happens.
Could I see your receipt?
Receipt? I haven't got one.
Oh, you should have obtained a receipt when you bought it.
I probably did. I must have thrown it away.
Ah, well, have you got any other proof of purchase? The guarantee, for example.
No, it must have been in the box. I threw that away, too.
Oh, dear. You really ought to have kept it. We need to know the exact date of purchase.
What? I only bought it yesterday. That young man over there served me. Oh, I paid by cheque. I've got the cheque stub.
That's all right, then. Did you check the radio before you left the shop?
Check it? No, it was in the box. I expected it to work. It wasn't a cheap radio. It's a good make.
You should have checked it.
Come on, stop telling me what I should have done and do something. Either give me my money back or give me another radio.
There's no need to get aggressive, sir. Let me look at it. You see this little switch on the back?
Yes.
It's on mains, and it should be on battery. You really should have read the instructions.
Oh.
The Mary Celeste. Part 1. The Mary Celeste was built in 1861 in Nova Scotia, Canada, as a cargo-carrying sailing ship. When it was launched, it was given the name the Amazon. It was not a lucky ship. The first captain died a few days after it was registered, and on its first voyage in 1862, it was badly damaged in a collision. While it was being repaired in port, it caught fire. In 1863, it crossed the Atlantic for the first time, and in the English Channel, it collided with another ship, which sank. The Amazon was badly damaged itself. 4 years later, in 1867, it ran aground on Cape Breton Island off the Canadian coast. The ship was almost completely wrecked and had to be rebuilt. It was then sold, and the name was changed to the Mary Celeste. Sailors are very superstitious and dislike sailing on ships which have been unlucky or which have changed their names. Many sailors refuse to sail on the Mary Celeste. On November the 5th, 1872, the Mary Celeste left New York carrying a cargo of commercial alcohol to Genoa in Italy. There were 11 people on board: Captain Briggs, his wife and 2-year-old daughter, and a crew of 8. Briggs was an experienced captain and a very religious man. In his cabin there was a harmonium which was used for playing hymns. A month later, the Mary Celeste was seen by another ship, the Dei Grazia, about halfway between the Azores and the Portuguese coast. Captain Morehouse of the Dei Grazia, a friend of Captain Briggs, noticed that the ship was sailing strangely. When the Mary Celeste did not answer his signal, he decided to investigate. He sent a small boat to find out what was wrong. The Mary Celeste was completely deserted. The only lifeboat was missing. All the sails were up and in good condition. All the cargo was there. The ship had obviously been through storms. The glass on the compass was broken. The windows of the deck cabins had been covered with wooden planks. There was a meter of water in the cargo hold, which was not enough to be dangerous. The water pumps were working perfectly. There was enough food for 6 months and plenty of fresh water. All the crew's personal possessions, clothes, boots, pipes, and tobacco, etc., were on board. There were toys on the captain's bed. There was food and drink on the cabin table. Only the navigation instruments and ship's papers were missing. The last entry in the ship's logbook had been made 11 days earlier, 1,000 kilometers west, but the ship had continued in a straight line. The forehatch was found open. There were 2 deep marks on the bows near the waterline. There was a deep cut on the ship's rail made by an axe. There were old brown blood stains on the deck and on the captain's sword, which was in the cabin. Captain Morehouse put some sailors on the Mary Celeste, who sailed it to Portugal. There was a long official investigation, but the story of what had happened on the ship and what had happened to the crew still remains a mystery. Captain Morehouse and his crew were given the salvage money for bringing the ship to port. Many explanations have been suggested, but none of them have ever been proved. The Mary Celeste, Part 2.
I don't know what happened, but it must have happened suddenly.
Why do you think that?
Think about it. There were toys on the captain's bed, weren't there? The child must have been playing, and they must have interrupted her suddenly.
Yes, that's true. And the food was on the table. They must have been eating, or getting ready to eat.
I'll tell you my theory. The lifeboat was missing, right? They could have been practicing their emergency drill. They must have got into the boat and launched it.
All right. But what happened to the boat?
They may have been rowing the lifeboat round the ship, and there must have been a gust of wind. Then the ship could have moved forward and run down the lifeboat. That explains the marks on the bows.
Come on. They can't all have been sitting in the lifeboat. What about the captain? He should have been steering the ship.
He might have been watching the drill and jumped in to save the others.